Good morning, everyone. Thank you for joining us again. I guess Elena is right. You must have had a good time yesterday, so I see a full room, and we hope that it will remain the same throughout the day. Kalimera σας. And thank you for joining us. It's a great pleasure to have you here. Mr. Mayor, I will start with you. You came into being the mayor of a city that had a great cosmopolitan past. It's a past that has been shattered. It doesn't exist anymore. It went away a long time ago, but this is something that people keep talking about. And there is always talk, although recreating something that is post-cosmopolitan is always complicated and difficult. It's something that people keep talking about it. Can you talk a little bit, how did this occupy you as you came into becoming the mayor of the city, and how do you see the possibility of the city reenacting some of that cosmopolitan character as you move forward? And what have you tried to do in all these years that look into that direction?
Well, thank you very much, Mr. Vasilakis. Good morning, everybody. Good morning, Mr. Spiros, Niarchos. Good morning, Mr. Dragopoulos. And I thank you once again for all of you being here. So, I have one thing in my mind. I had that in my mind always, but especially when we took over the municipality. I said that you cannot build your future unless you know your past. This is a principle I have. So when we took over, we said, what's the past of Thessaloniki? For 2,300 years, it was always started from a small settlement in the Thermaikos Bay, and it continued for all these years with many periods of violence, of destructions, of everything. But finally, at the end of the 19th century, it was a booming city, a cosmopolitan city, second to Istanbul and the then Ottoman Empire, and a link between the East and the West. Because apart from at that time, the population of Thessaloniki was around 150,000, something like that. So there were 50,000 Jews, 30,000 Turks, another 30,000 Greeks, and another 20, 30,000 Slavs, Armenians, Italians, French, everybody. Thessaloniki was a booming spot, commercial, financial, transportation, enjoying life, everything. So after the liberation from the Ottoman Empire, if you watch this 100 years, it was full of distractions, exchange of populations, the big fire, finally, the two wars, the civil war, and finally, and the biggest blow was the Holocaust. So Thessaloniki, after the 60s, was a poor city of the province of Greece. In Athens, everything was gathered in Athens. So Thessaloniki was slowly but definitely going down and down and down. And it came up to the phase where it is today. The port is a joke compared to other ports of the Mediterranean. Transportation, no railroads, no roads. Egnatia has done something, but it's not enough yet. So what we said is that we cannot revive the past, we cannot copy the past, but we can learn from the past. So what are the treasures of Thessaloniki? Thessaloniki is a city which has very human dimensions. It has a treasure which is the universities, 120,000 students which walk on the streets, and you feel the energy, these young people, it's flowing around. Industry, forget about it. It's definitely moved to other places of cheap labor, cheap taxes, no taxes. So what can we do to promote this thing? Spiros and Lina, and this is a parenthesis. One thing I'm very proud of this municipality is that I gathered young people around. You see them?
Yep.
I gathered young people around, and they are very, very, not ambitious. They are dedicated to what they do. They do that because they believe in that. And they believe in that because they love the city. And I don't know what's going to happen in 5 years, but now they are so dedicated to what they do, and they do it so well, that I cannot but praise them. And this is the biggest satisfaction I have is that through the movement we had to gain the city and to overcome the conservatism of the city, was this young you see three of them, there are many more, that tried to work and bring up the past, not copy the past, but learn from the past and apply new things. This is the main thing. So, what's our vision for the future? So, first of all, the port. The port is absolutely necessary. Privatization of the port is a very good thing that happens. And let's hope that this will happen quickly. It is already we are late in bringing up the port. And then we got naturally railroads and roads, and we got a big ambition. The ambition is, if we can, and we are going to push this idea, which is not a new idea. It's an idea that the old Karamanlis had first initiated, connecting the Aegean Sea with the Baltic Sea through Axios River, Danube, and going up to the Baltic Sea. Now this, if it's accepted, it's not a Greek thing to do, it's a European road. If this is done, then Thessaloniki will become again a very, very important spot in the European map. So, but this is the vision for the future. And then we also try to do, apart from the thing that happened, and we must face it and face it in a good manner. The refugee crisis. We are trying to absorb the refugees that stay in the city and absorb them in the society of Thessaloniki. Thessaloniki was always named as the mother of the refugees. Apart from the mother of Israel, it's the mother of refugees. In the 90s, more than 1 million Albanians came to Greece. And nowadays, the first years, everything bad that happened in Greece was because of the Albanians. Nowadays, in Thessaloniki only, we have around 70,000 Albanians. They live well, they are good entrepreneurs, they are good workers, they are good people. Their children go to school, so the society absorbs them. Not very easily, but it absorbs them. So this is what we must do with any kind of refugees that will come. And having in mind that the whole area of the Mediterranean is in a war state, it's not easy, but we must do it. So the vision is, first of all, bringing up the port. The port will bring economic facilities. Then the universities. The universities is a huge treasure for the city, and we try to help the university, the authorities of the universities, to make the universities of Thessaloniki make it a spot where people students will like to come to Thessaloniki to study, whatever. It's their job to decide what they'll do. But we want to help as a municipality, because the municipality, you know, Mr. Vasilakis, the municipality does not do things. The municipality opens the doors so that things can be done by people. And this is another idea that we try to introduce to our co-citizens. We have a motto, and we try to pass to our citizens. I love my city, I adopt my neighborhood. If the citizens do not participate and do not, let's say, do not come to like the propositions we have, will fail. It's clear. Nobody, no municipality, no mayor can do anything unless the people will support it. So I don't want to catch up more of your time. I'll let the other people speak. But
a couple of more things to you. You talked about people getting involved with the city, and you're talking about people accepting the vision that you have about the city. And of course, there are different ways to manifest that. One of them is through the political process and by voting, but the other one is by actively participating into what you have created. And I took a walk late last night from where we are for dinner all the way down through the coastal front, and I was astonished how crowded it was very late in the evening. It remained crowded until 12:30. You could hear many different languages as you're walking up and down. And I have been here before, and it was always kind of a crowded area, but never to the extent that I saw last night. So you have managed to create a public space that existed before, but it wasn't utilized properly. And it seems to me that was one of the big things that you did, that a lot of focus went into regenerating, restructuring, renovating, refiguring that whole front so that it does become a public space. Can you talk about this a little bit?
Yeah. Public space is very scarce in Thessaloniki, and not only Thessaloniki, in the whole of Greece, all the cities of Greece have not enough public space. So what we did is that we declared from the municipality council, I hate cars. And I had the other day, I had a meeting, a lady stopped me on the street and she said to me, oh, Mayor, what are you going to do? We must do parkings and things like that. Where do I park my car? What do I do? And I said to her, look, madam, I'll give you an advice. Sell your car. If you sell your car, for the next 40 years, you'll have a taxi driver driving you all over wherever you want. You'll not have the expenses of the car, and you'll be happy. So why use it? She was like a goldfish. She couldn't answer. And believe me, I really believe in what I said to her. You don't need the car in a city like Thessaloniki. You can use the taxis, which are very, very cheap. You can do, even we have only one public means of transportation, only the buses. And they are in a very bad condition. So one of our ambitions is that energy, the green city, our ambition is to have the electric cars, buses, and all the cars, all the fleet of the municipality, more than 500 cars, all of them electric. And little by little, convince even the taxi drivers to have electric taxis. At the same time, produce electricity. Now, this is a good idea for an investor. It will pay back. The municipality doesn't have any money. It cannot do an investment like that, and it should not do an investment like that, because I'm fond of private and public cooperation. You put the money, I give you the project, you put the money, you gain back your profit, and everybody's happy. It's a win-win situation. And another thing that we have done, and Spiros will tell you more about it, what we call the diplomacy of the cities. We don't care about the political, on the political level, if we fight with Albania or Skopje or whatever. What we care is we go to the cities, we present our city, and we say we have these restaurants, these hotels, these museums, this whatever you want to do. Study in Thessaloniki is a part of the diplomacy of the cities. We go for 1 or 2 days, we present it, and we expect them to come, and they come. So this is one of the reasons. The Greeks usually say, oh, Thessaloniki is the metropolis of the Balkans. Bullshit, it's not the Balkans at all. It's a declining city. Correct. So in order to bring it back, we've got to learn from the past. What did they do? They were free. They are open to everything. They didn't have restrictions. You don't park here, you don't park there, you don't do things like that. What we feel is that we must pass this change of mentality to our people. Be free of yourselves. We had a huge fight with the church for many reasons. And now I'm a very good friend with Archbishop. He's a very extreme person, but he's very decent and he's very clear. So I said to him when I took over, look, we're never going to be friends, but you are the religious leader of the city and I'm the political leader of the city. We've got to give the example that even if we are so opposite as we are, we cooperate for the good of the citizens. So this is part of the dream. This is part of the vision. And we open the door. We give the example to the people with things like that, so that they will start little by little to participate. Thessaloniki has a percentage, voting percentage of around 10%, the Golden Dawn. It is huge. So this must change. It doesn't change overnight. You need a lot of time.
We will talk about engaging the city's Jewish past later. We'll come to the potential of a Holocaust museum. We'll talk about it in a minute. But I wanted to ask you about your recent trip in the US, where on behalf of almost 1,500 European mayors, you signed a declaration against anti-Semitism on behalf of European mayors, which it's very important. And I wanted you to talk about a little bit about being the figure that represented the rest of the mayors of Europe. And in order to do so, you must have done certain things that show that the city is embracing something different from what you see around today. Can you talk about this a little bit?
Yeah, this is, first of all, this is a huge honor for the city and naturally for me, that I was appointed by the American Jewish Committee to address the General Assembly of the American Jewish Committee, having signed the declaration of anti-racism, anti-Zionism, and all these things. It was me from the European, about 200 European cities, 60 million people, and the mayor of Baltimore, who is the president of the American Association of Municipalities, 300 municipalities, 80 million people. So this was, I was chosen by the American Jewish Committee. I was not by the Europeans, because it was their initiative. So what we did when we took over, it's always the same thing. Know your past. Nobody knows how Thessaloniki would be if it hasn't lost 30% of its population during the Holocaust. Right? And it was not only that it lost these 50,000 souls. It lost the most energetic part of the city. Because the Jews were rich, they were middle class, they were poor, they were everything. So, and the movement of the Jews who left Thessaloniki started just after the war, the First World War, in 1914. Most of them at that time fled to Paris. But the Jewish population of Thessaloniki was so important and so big that you can, we meet people from all over the world and they come from Thessaloniki. The writer Modiano, he comes from Thessaloniki, who got the Nobel Prize last year, literature. Sarkozy, he has his origin from Thessaloniki. Dassault, he has his origin from Thessaloniki. So this is the past. So what can we do to show to the rich people of Thessaloniki what they did for Thessaloniki, what they must do now? They must not keep their money in the pockets. They must give. You don't get your portfolio with you, your money with you when you fly up. So, and the thing is that we started again the silent march, as we call it, the march from Liberation Square to the old railroad station where the Jews were deported for Auschwitz. We went to Auschwitz, to the March of the Living, the first mayor of Thessaloniki who went to the March of the Living. And we honored 29 survivors of the Holocaust who came back to Thessaloniki. And we pushed the university, and we pressed the university to erect a monument at the university campus, which has the cemetery, the Jewish cemetery, one of the oldest and one of the biggest cemeteries in Europe. And this is where the Thessaloniki has remorses that the Germans, they gave the order to vanish, the cemetery should be vanished. But it was executed by the Greeks. And this is not a very, very good thing. They could resist. Probably the cemetery would be destroyed, but you don't have to cooperate. So, and then another thing is that I wore the yellow star of David, during the inauguration.
The inauguration
of the second term, because we have two representatives of the Golden Dawn in there, and this was just a thing of protesting against the existence of Golden Dawn. So we did all these things, and then we came up to the idea, and Mr. Santier is here, president of the Jewish community, that we should build a museum of the Holocaust and an educational center. We are in touch with the Jewish organizations all over the world. But the idea is not to have another Holocaust museum. We have evidence of that all over. Definitely, the museum will present the city. But the idea is to present how important was the presence of the Jewish community in the 500 years that came from, when they came from Spain. They came to Thessaloniki in 1492, if I remember well. Yes. They came to Thessaloniki from Spain. The Jews were here in Thessaloniki. There's evidence that they were here even when Apostolos Paul came here to Thessaloniki. So it was not new, but Thessaloniki, the Ottoman Empire at the time, received them, and they were well adjusted to the environment of Thessaloniki, and this is how Thessaloniki became more than cosmopolitan.
We'll get back to the Holocaust Museum, and it's interesting to meet people all the time whose roots, I mean in the US, whose roots come from the city. I was actually very moved. Limor Tomer, who I believe is in this room and actually is the curator of the events in Athens next week, went to a tour yesterday and found her family's name written on the wall, which was very moving. I wanted to move into something else, and that's for the rest of the team. You have...
I'll tell you, excuse me for one thing. I'll tell you one thing. That apart from the Jews, we had the exchange of populations with the Turks. I can assure you that we have many Turks coming to Thessaloniki, visiting Thessaloniki, and they try to find the houses of the old, the families of the houses, because in Thessaloniki, the Turks live in the hills, beautiful, the best place of the Jews lived, the middle class and the poor, they lived in the center of the city. The Greeks lived in the area around the Rotunda, yeah. And the rich Jews lived in what they call the countryside. So it's not only the Jews that have their connection with Thessaloniki, it's the Turks also, and many others, French, Italians, they have origins from Thessaloniki. This is very moving and very important for the future.
You know, it's a truly cosmopolitan city, there's no doubt about it. You are part of the Resilient Cities initiative by Rockefeller Foundation, which I think it's a great honor to be involved with that. And it can be of a great benefit to the city, but also there are cases when cities get nothing out of it. And that happens when you get into a situation where you identify the problems, you identified what you need to do with them, and that's what, the contribution of that whole initiative is. But then the municipality becomes unable to implement any of that. So in essence, it remains a study on paper, a study for which a lot of people have put a lot of effort and a lot of money has been spent, but it never gets utilized. And this is something that we have observed with similar efforts before, the inability of Greek municipalities to really benefit out of these efforts. So I wanted to ask you, how do you plan to do things differently so that you benefit of what you do as part of that Resilient Cities initiative?
I think Lina should answer. She's our
Any of you, whoever is the one who feels more comfortable.
I was writing the proposal, but then Lina took over. And just as an introduction, maybe to say that actually the incentive, the motive to write and to bid for being part of the 100 Resilient Cities was the social upheaval and the economic crisis that we had. We had an experience in 2008 when we had riots in the city, and we were walking around and seeing damaging the shops, destroying properties and so on, and the city was unable to react in a preventive way somehow to what was happening. And that was the reason why we said we have to find a mechanism, to develop a mechanism to protect our city and to make our city resilient. And we bid, we are part of the story, and Lina can tell you more.
Well, first of all, thank you.
We can hear you.
Can you hear me now? Yeah, it's better. Thessaloniki became part of the 100 Resilient Cities initiative at a very specific time and a very important point into what Thessaloniki should become. So having a deep understanding of what the city was, we had this opportunity to become part of this network, and we became part of this network through a very competitive process. So let's say there are more than 1,000 cities that have applied and 100 that have been selected. This is not another program. This is a strong commitment from both the city and the 100 Resilient Cities network. And we played and we work in two different levels. The first level is inside the municipality. So we have the resources and we created and staffed a resilience office within the city hall. So an office with young, active people that try to infuse this resilient aspect and this resilient methodology to the everyday activities of the city. The second part and the second scale we work with is we have continuous support through a network of global experts. So every day we are the office in Thessaloniki, but at the same time the office in London, the office in New York, even the office in Singapore. So this is a very robust support in what we do in every step of the way. The third and most important part is we have access to a pool of solution ideas about the cities and access to global organizations, the private sector, NGOs, universities globally. And this is not in our wildest dreams could we ever imagine that Thessaloniki, the second biggest city in Greece, could have access and be able to discuss issues that are relevant for the city with global organizations like, for example, the World Bank. What we like to say is that we are an email away from knowing what is happening to Paris or what is happening to Auckland or Melbourne. So, for example, now we have the heat wave in Thessaloniki. We know what Paris has done in order and how Paris develops their plan for the heat waves. So the first part is how you infuse this new kind of methodology, and you know better, most of the people here know that public institutions in Greece are not accustomed to strategizing, are not accustomed to planning for the future. So now we have the ability to use a state-of-the-art methodology that will give the Thessaloniki this competitiveness in relation to the other cities, not only in Greece, but in Europe and globally, in order to leverage resources and implement what our strategy is about.
Let me add one thing to that, is that we have a tool. It's the Metropolitan Company of Thessaloniki. Because Thessaloniki, the metropolitan area is 8 municipalities. Now, it's not worthwhile to talk about resilience and things like that with only one municipality of 350,000 people in an area of 1 million people. So what we want to use this tool, this Metropolitan Company, which is all the municipalities which are around Thessaloniki, have an important percentage on this company. But we still have some problems with it, but we'll manage. I just wanted to say about the...
From the very beginning, we said also to the other mayors that we want to share this opportunity. So it's not an opportunity only for the municipality of Thessaloniki, but it's an opportunity for the city as a whole. Because exactly, resilience is an issue that we have to see in the urban fabric of the city, so not in the administrative boundaries of the city of Thessaloniki.
Let me comment a little bit on efficiency, because you asked also if we manage to be efficient. And I want to tell a few things about the city's finances. Because when we came into power, and this is very important, you need that solid base in order to do things. And when we came into power, we inherited a municipality with debts of over, 45 million, 90 million euros. And we managed in 3 years to balance our budget, to pay the $45 million that we own to providers and collaborators and providers of the municipality. And in 4 years, we managed to have a surplus. Now we have a cash flow of 20 million euros. And this shows a kind of efficiency. This is not self-confident. This is not in Greece that is happening. We are exercising crisis management since 2010. We are also probably a product of the economic crisis. We came into power also because of the crisis. But we are exercising crisis management all these years. And I think and believe regarding finances in a positive way. So we are confident that we will manage now to do more.
One thing here is that a lot of times cities that become part of these efforts, they try to do big things. And the Resilient Cities effort, they provide the studies, but they do not provide the financing at the end. You will have to go out and find the money to implement what the study says that you need to do. And that becomes a problem sometimes, again, because if you aim too high, you end up not doing it. You also find out, and that's the interesting thing about these initiatives and talking to other cities, that sometimes small initiatives, small ones, can make a huge change. Do you have an opinion on that? Is that something that you're focusing on? How are you going to get the funding after the studies are done to implement things? And also, are you focusing on smaller things that can change the city radically without requiring huge funding?
Lina will tell more on the tools that we will activate in the next few years. I want to comment on what also the mayor said, that actually we as municipality, we don't imagine or we don't want to do big things. We are the facilitators. We are the mediators. We want to open the doors, to open the windows so that our people do. So the aim is to empower our own people, to empower the civic society, and that they do, to give opportunities. This is what we are doing, for example, with tourism, by developing tourism, by bringing over additional 1 million people from 2010 to Thessaloniki, by giving tangible benefit by these incoming tourism to our people. We force them in a way to activate, to be engaged as businessmen, as entrepreneurs in that sector. This is what we do. We don't want to be ourselves entrepreneurs and to do things. We want to give incentives, non-tangible incentives actually, and to create the environment for our own people to do things. And the mayor, when he came in power, I remember 2010, the first thing he said is, don't expect from us huge pharaonic works. We don't have the money to do that.
The key word here is engagement. So from the very beginning of when you go out and say, okay, I'm going to do a strategy, you have to engage the stakeholders of the city, but also the citizens. What we've done so far, and within 2 months of work, we've engaged with more than 1,500 people. So 1,500 people have become part of this resilience dialogue. If you communicate and engage and create synergies from the very beginning, then when you've concluded your strategy, it means it's a strategy that is based on what the city already does, and it's part of the everyday activity of also of the stakeholders. So it's not a strategy and it's not a plan that you're gonna make in a closed doors and in an office, and then one day go out and say, okay, I've done the strategy, let's go out and implement. Of course, you'll never have impact on that. But you have to be very specific from the very beginning to engage with the people and also see all the different scales. So we are talking about a long-term vision, so we are talking about Thessaloniki 2030. We may talk about big visions as, for example, Axios River to Danube, but at the same time we're talking about how we can institutionalize citizens' participation in the everyday life, how we change the behavior of the citizen in terms of waste management, in how they use the public space, issues of equity, at the same time issues of mobility, green infrastructure, and how this is connected to the shape of the local economy. So it's these horizontal issues of creating new kind of systems, and also see what is out there. So what are the priorities of the EU? What are the priorities of the World Bank? What are the priorities of the European Investment Bank? So we have from the beginning to be very realistic, because we had so far many studies and many strategies of, you know, what a city would look like.
The refugee crisis. I mean, my engagement with the city is totally superficial, but it seemed to me, you know, walking around, that you are not burning the, you know, the heavy impact of the crisis in the way other places do. Certainly not, you know, the way that the entry points, the islands do. Certainly not the way Athens has had to carry that weight. But you have been asked to accommodate, to take in, to host a certain number of people, and the situation may change as well. As it's a very dynamic, evolving situation that changes day after day. How are you planning? Because you have talked in the past about not just taking these people in and providing them housing and, you know, and separating them, but completely integrating them within the civic life of the city, the urban fabric of the city. Can you talk a little bit about this? Which points, again, we had this conversation, points back to the city's ability to integrate and to have different ethnicities living next to each other, separately, but at the same time together. You can't do that with such small numbers. It's obvious, that's delusional, but you can use that idea to create a different dynamic in the way we deal with refugees in Greece.
First of all, we must underline one fact, that the refugees from Syria, Afghanistan, wherever, they don't want to stay in Greece. In opposition with the refugees we had up to now, the Albanians, the Armenians. We had the Armenian community of 2,000 people, and now there are more than 12,000. The Greeks from Russia, from Georgia, they wanted to come to Greece. Now, these refugees, they don't want to come to Greece.
They don't want to stay.
They don't want to stay. So it's just passing through. So this is one problem, which is a problem because they don't cooperate.
But they might have to stay eventually.
Well, it's an obligation. We have to keep in Greece around 50,000 people. So we have to absorb them. And we have to convince them that it's good to stay in Greece. So we signed with the United Nations Refugee Fund, we signed an agreement for 100 apartments where we'll host refugees. We also are in discussions with the non-profit organization, the German non-profit organization, for building, erecting around 250 houses in an area we have, which is near Thessaloniki, but it belongs to the municipality of Thessaloniki. We have started operating a small six apartments in an old stables of Thessaloniki, which is transformed for refugees. They stay for 6 months and they change. So we have a problem with schools. Now the thing is that the authorities said that we must lead the guys, the young people to the schools. Now I said, look, don't do that. They won't leave the boys, leave the places where they live, and by buses and go to schools and come back. They'll never do it. Try to apply what they called in Spain the moving schools. They did moving schools for the Romas, which works well. And instead of the students going to the school, let the teacher go to the place where they live. They feel more safe. No? So it's not going to be easy. It's not going to be easy. Because first of all, they don't want to stay. But I think that little by little, then apart from the schools, we have to offer them jobs. We have to offer them places of worship. For the religion. In Greece, we don't even have a mosque, which is totally foolish. Huh? What can a mosque do but do? We are obliged to give any kind of help. We gave Yiannis last year, for the last 3 years. We gave Yiannis twice a year for the Ramazan and the Ramazan and the Bayram in August and in November, I think. They go there, they pray for 1 day, nobody is annoyed, nobody gets hurt. So where's the problem? Now, this is what we call, in Greece, we invented enemies. Everybody is against us. The Albanians are against us, the Skopjes are against us, the Turks are against us, God is against us, everybody's against us. So, but at the same time...
And then you're in trouble if God is against you.
At the same time, we are the most clever people in the world, and we have inherited...
We think so.
Yeah. So, who's going to change that? The system we have, the school system we have, I have 6 grandchildren. 3 of them, they are in Elysium. So, and they are giving exams now. And they read from this page to this page, and from this page to this page. And I said, if we have a book with 100 pages and you read only 50, why print a book with 100 pages? I mean, the educational system in Greece, this is the source of everything bad that happens in Greece. The educational system. Then didn't we have lessons one day? They said, how come you don't have lessons? I said, the teachers are voting today. Can they vote on the weekend? So these are things, we can laugh about it, but these are tragic things. And unless we start doing something, this is going to be a no-no thing for the next...
No, I wanted to come back to the refugees because it's not easy, as you said, too, and I wanted to talk to you about it because you have very specific ideas about the whole thing. It is not easy to do this, you're right. There are a lot of different elements that have to be considered. At the same time, this is something that has been done well in other places. We have the know-how. There's certainly a lot of brain power and experience in this room. We heard it in the refugee panel yesterday. We have done a lot of work on this front, and there are a lot of really great NGOs working on the ground, both Greek and international NGOs. So there is a lot of knowledge and there is a lot of willingness to help. And I wanted to ask you how you are approaching this whole thing and whether or not you are working with all these people that know how to deal with situations like this.
Yeah. The mayor is, to begin with, I think the mayor is modest enough not to say that there's a huge difference between him and the rest of the politicians, maybe with the exception of Mayor of Kozani and a few others. It came from the discussion yesterday. We don't see refugees as a burden. We see them as an opportunity. Where the mayor was one of the very few ones to invite refugees even to be incorporated in the city center, even to open structures in the city center, open structures, of course. That's a big difference with the rest of the politicians. In addition to this, we're the first ones to ask for a contingency plan one year and a half ago. They were laughing at us at this time. Now they don't seem to be laughing that much. Also, we took responsibilities that they are not supposed to be ours. We run and we manage a camp in the port of the city. We did the first pilot, as the mayor mentioned, the first pilot structure for refugees, for asylum seekers in the city center. We had to encounter big resistance from hotheads and from fanatics, but they were convinced, and that's very important. We have to underline that we started educating people that these, because the media portray refugees like if they are devils, then we convince people that they are normal people, they have their kids and they want to look for a job and stay here with us. So apart from the humanitarian view that obviously we have it, it's very vivid in our movement, in Protovulia and in the administration of the municipality, we have a different approach. We don't see them as a burden, we see them as an opportunity. Of course, we wouldn't be able to revive the cosmopolitan past of the city as it was, but we incorporate that to our vision for a cosmopolitan future. May I add something on a personal level? The mayor looks, he has his tattoos, he has his earring, and he seems to be very laid back to most of the people. I have to stress here as his advisor that he's extremely industrious, he's extremely hardworking. He works like more than 12 hours a day. It's difficult for us, despite being young, to follow his pace.
I know what you mean, believe me.
But in addition to that, I have to stress again that there is another difference between him and most of the politicians. He has an acute emotional intelligence, and he also has social skills that other people don't have. In the beginning, I thought, this guy doesn't have a concrete vision. He doesn't have a concrete plan. We don't meet every day between 3 to 5 in order to impose our plan, our detailed plan to the rest of the people. The more I work with him, I realize that he has a plan, and the plan is very concrete. It is to open up the city. It has 3 levels. We restored the monuments of the city of our past in order to achieve that. It has a second level, which is the networking and the synergies with the rest of the countries, or our neighboring countries, which is our inland. The modern Greek state amputated Thessaloniki. Not for, there were good reasons, obstacles, let's say, like the communist regime, the Cold War, but the mayor is the first mayor of Thessaloniki to believe in its magnitude, in its inland. Otherwise, you couldn't explain that he's the only mayor talking to presidents, talking to prime ministers. We met the president of Bulgaria, the president of Serbia, the president of Albania. We met with the president of Israel. He met former Prime Minister Davutoglu. He's not afraid to make Thessaloniki big again. In some ways, in an implicit way, he expresses his plan for the philosophers here in a postmodern tinge, but without the relativity of it. So he has a concrete plan. But we are not afraid of the human resources of Thessaloniki. We are not afraid of competition. We are not afraid of openness. We believe in our human resources. Also, we don't need to win and other people to lose. You know, we're looking for win-win situations. We believe in that. So I think the mayor is very modest, and in some ways his vision is malleable. But this is because he believes in the bottom-up approaches. He really observes people if someone would know him, he would believe that he doesn't have a view, an image of what is going on in the municipality. He always goes, he spends 2 hours with 2 people, he uses the vanity of people and he convinces that all of them are very important. He tells them that how nice views they have, but he knows what is going on in the municipality. He knows every detail of it. So he looks laid back, but he's industrious, he has a concrete vision, and as I explained, it's unfolding gradually, but very clearly to me. The more I work with him, the more sure I am about it.
Okay. That is, I have one more question, and then I would like to open the forum to the audience for questions. We talked yesterday, Andreas in his introduction said that, you know, the opportunity is there for Thessaloniki to grab it. And this is a trend worldwide, that the emphasis now is on cities, on big urban centers, for a number of different reasons. The majority of the world's population is concentrated into cities, and cities from an administrative perspective are considered more nimble, more flexible. It may not be the case in Thessaloniki, but that's the general trend. So a lot of experiments are going on within cities that can define what happens at a much broader scale. And I wanted to ask whether or not you are aware of that opportunity that you have today, that you are engaged in a number of these different initiatives. Resilient City is one of them. You have opened the city to different fronts, that something that other Greek cities have not done. So you have an opportunity to really play an important role and to change things in a way that can be used at a much broader scale as a paradigm for the rest of the country. Are you aware of that? Is that something that is in the back of your minds? How are you looking into this? Because you do have, I think, a great opportunity here to set the stage.
Yes, I think we are aware of that. I mean, it's. I was amazed also listening to Leonidas, and sometimes you don't realize what you're doing and how you are working. And indeed, it has been a very creative time so far, and we hope it's going to be creative also in the future. We have opened up the city, that's true. We have achieved development in touristic terms. We are connected in many projects. We work with international institutions like yours and many others that I could now recall the name, but there's no meaning in that. So we have reached a stage where we have to unfold now more. And that more has to be more inclusive. This is the ambition for the next 2-3 years, I think. That we, as we mentioned many times, that we empower the civic society, we empower our own citizens, we make them part of this new story writing and this new writing of the DNA of the city, that they become part. This is the challenge for the next 3 years. And we are very much aware of that, and I'm sure that the mayor and ourselves, we want to reach that goal with a lot of determination and vigor, and bring the city, not only make it a metropolitan, transform it in a metropolis of the Balkans, of the region, but make it really an international cosmopolitan city.
If I may add something, is that when we took over the city, the idea is open up all windows, everything. Let the people get confused with what's happening. And then little by little, they'll start understanding what's happening. So we got to do things in different levels. The first and initial thing was to arrange the financial status of the municipality. As soon as we've done that, we have banks coming and offering loans, which is very important. We have already had approval from the European Bank, Investment Bank, for 50 million for doing small things, not big things. And we have others coming. So the first thing was put in order the financial situation, and now it moves. The second thing was to improve three things. One was waste management, the second one was traffic, and the third was how the municipality works for the people. In waste management, we did some good things with recycling, and we've got a long way to go. With traffic, we failed. And with the better the better way that the municipality serves the citizens, we still have many ways to go. You must understand how the public administration works. We have a negative position from the people working in the municipality, so that the citizens can use their cards, the credit cards, the cash cards, whatever, to pay any kind of payment they have for the municipality. This is unreal. I said yesterday to somebody that I'm going to write a book, 5 years in the municipality of Thessaloniki, which is going to be science fiction. It's like that. So, as I told you, the thing is that we have three main big things that in the coming years they have to be in a top position. The big things, electric cars and energy and the Niarchos river, they are dreams. They can come true. We push them, but it's not only we push them. Our job is to make this life of the city better, and we do it by small things. And then we give hope. We have to give hope to the people. We give hope that, yes, in the coming 15 years, we have barges going from Thessaloniki to Hamburg. This is a good hope. Yes, we have found the Egnatia Road with the workshops of gold and silver and things at the same place where they are now. And it is 1,500 years ago, the same place, the city came up and up. Now, the thing has been solved for 4 years. They have accused us of the metro thing being late because of the antiquities they found, which is totally not true. The company that took over the metro was bankrupt. There was no good study of the problem they could find on the way. Now, the goal is we have what we call the archaeological plaza, two plazas, one on the Alcazar and one in Bezesteni, with an underground bridge going over the finding of the Egnatia. And then the second round is Platia Dikitiriou and the Roman Agora and the Panagia Chalkeon, which gives all the periods of Thessaloniki. The Egnatia, which is Roman Hellenistic, you have the Alcazar and Bezesteni being the Ottoman presence, you have Platia Dikitiriou, you have even Neolithic findings down there, and you have the Roman market and the Byzantine church. So what more do you want? 2,000 years of history. It's the archaeological, and this is the use of history in a good way. Not just being very proud, oh, we are the straight from the ancient Greeks who invented democracy and I don't know what else.
So if I can summarize somehow, you see here there's a totally different, non-conventional perception of politics and what politicians should do. And this is the aim, this to become a virus, go down to society, to civic society, to our citizens, and they change also their approach and perception of public life, public sphere. Then Thessaloniki will not need Boutaris or any public figure. It will go by itself.
If I may,
quickly, so we can have a couple of questions.
Okay. It's related to the Living Lab, that Thessaloniki has all the great ingredients to become a testing bed for new ideas and new solutions. And we as a city to try to have a presence in all the big European events and even the global ones. But here we have institutional challenges that we have to overcome, especially in how the national government and the regional government understand this new kind of position of the cities within the global environment.
Thank you. I would like to take questions from the audience. 2 or 3, please. Be as quick as possible, as precise as possible, and avoid statements. Just ask directly. Yes, Professor Zakos.
I would like to thank you for your accomplishments and for your position concerning the antiquities. As an archaeologist, I have to praise that. And I have the feeling that the political establishment does not like what is happening in Thessaloniki. Am I correct or not?
Yes, I think you are correct. I think you are correct.
Any other questions? Back there. The gentleman in the back. Yes, yes. You, in the back.
You are taking one from each side or what? I am bringing my hand.
I know. Hold on a second, please. We are also going to have a chance to talk to them later. Go ahead, please. Yes, there's a mic there.
Thank you for you. My question addresses goes to Mr. Mayor. What is your approach to make the city accessible for everybody, especially for disabled people? Thank you.
Accessibility for disabled people.
Yes.
Can I say something? Right now, one member of our staff, Giorgos, is in the United States following a program on accessibility in cities. And this is very important because it's none of us. It's not an elected member or something. It's a member of the staff of the city. And because this is one of the aims and strategic targets that we have, he's there getting know-how, bringing it back, and doing more here in Thessaloniki for accessibility.
Thank you. Go ahead, please. Anything on that? Alessandro?
Could you just, Alessandro Politi, could you just add a bit more detail on how you balanced the budget? Because big cities have always, these big debt problems. Thank you very much.
Yes, we had, apart from balancing the budget, we have to face some debts because of a huge scandal at the municipality of Thessaloniki, which we still do not know how high the missing money are. So one of the ways to balance the budget is cut down expenses. So you don't balance the budget by bringing up municipality taxes. On the contrary, we brought down municipality taxes and we cut down expenses, remaking the way we buy things for the municipality, from petrol to everything, and by paying promptly. One of the things we found out is that the municipality used to pay in a year and a half. Now this had as a result that the prices they got were 2 times more than the usual. You could buy things cheaper in a supermarket than, for example, cleaning goods in a supermarket. You buy them cheaper instead of buying 2 tons of cleaning things through competitions. So this is big money. This is big money. We pay in. Sometimes we have some problems, but because Greece, as you probably know, is a country in poverty, but in bankruptcy. But what we try to do is pay not more than 60 days. Now 60 days is cash. So people love it.
Thank you. Thank you. I think we have concluded. Thank you very much.